Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Farm to Institution New England's forum on Dining for a Cooler Planet, Lessons for Engaging Students and Launching New Initiatives. My name is Tanya Taranovsky, and I'm FINE's Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships, and I'm really pleased to be moderating this session today, and an exciting topic that we're thrilled to share with you all. Also helping out today are several FINE staff members, so thank you for joining us, Sarah, Britt, Peter, and Dana. Appreciate your help today. Before we get started, I would just like to kick things off with a brief introduction to FINE and our work. Then I'm going to hand things over to our speakers. FINE is an organization whose mission is to mobilize the power of regional institutions to transform our food system. We welcome you to learn more about FINE by going to our website. We like to bring people together to be able to build this network across the region to build a better food system. So that includes all of you. We're really glad that you're here today to help us think about the things that we need to be doing to create that regional food system that we all envision. I also want to tell you a little bit about the campus network. This is one of the programs that FINE helps support. About in 2015, there was not really a really good group that was helping support campuses who were trying to purchase more local food, educate people about local food and the regional food system. And so there was a convening back in 2015 that happened that FINE was a part of, and out of that grew this Farm and Sea to Campus network. And since that time, FINE has been helping coordinate, support, bring people together to be able to work on the things that are important across the campus network. And one of our speakers today, Kathy Wicks, has been part of the steering committee that helps determine the activities of that group and how we move forward. So we're really pleased to have her joining us today to also speak about what's happening on her campus. There are many ways that you can join and be part of this. We have a dining operators listserv that is open to all dining operators who are working to bring more good local food into their institutions. We also have a Farm and Sea to Campus Network Facebook group, and we're always happy to provide forums and different opportunities for people to get together to speak about the issues that they're dealing with, the challenges, the solutions, and we'll be talking about some of that today. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome Kathy Wicks and Monica Guzik. They both work in sustainability for UMass Amherst in the dining services and auxiliary services. And like I said, UMass Amherst has been a leader in dining opportunity, an incredible dining program for their students, and also really thinking about how dining helps campuses meet their missions and helps create the food system that we are hoping to achieve. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Kathy, and who will kick things off for us. Kathy?
Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Wait. Just a second. There we go. Great. All right. We're ready to go. Thank you to FINE for inviting us to present. It is both a privilege and an honor to work with FINE and participate in these regional conversations that are so important for a healthy, sustainable, resilient food system at a regional level. And I'm Kathy Wicks. I'm the Director of Sustainability for UMass Dining, and the dining program is part of the larger auxiliary services on campus. And I'm excited to be here to present about one of our favorite initiatives. And joining me in the presentation is Monica, so I'll let her introduce herself before we move into introducing the agenda.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, FINE, and Tanya, and everyone for helping get this going today. But my name is Monica Guzik, and I'm the Sustainability Manager at UMass Dining and Auxiliary Enterprises. So alongside Kathy, I'm helping implement all of the sustainability initiatives across the various departments of auxiliary enterprises.
So today we're going to be talking about our Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign, but we're welcoming all of you as the first part of our agenda, so welcome. And then we're going to kick off with just a brief overview of UMass Amherst Dining Services. Then we'll go through the overview of the Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign and kind of walk through how it came to be and then how it has evolved over time. We'll look at both the activities that we have engaged in, as well as how we have engaged with our campus community, students specifically, but the broader community as well. And then we'll have a few discussion questions that we look forward to all of you participating and engaging in. We will be utilizing the chat function and the raise your hand function for the discussion and for the question and answer. And then anything that we don't get to, we will take back and invite you to communicate with us with any additional questions moving forward. So I hope that sounds okay for everybody. We're going to just keep moving along.
Great. So yeah, we just wanted to start off the presentation by giving a little background to the UMass Dining program and share our mission, our values, and the impact we have on our students and in our region. So the mission we have at UMass Dining is to enhance the campus life experience through a variety of healthy meals that are flavorful, that incorporate local foods, and that are inspired by global cuisines, and do so in a way that's not only delicious, but also sustainable and environmentally responsible. And we really strive to be one of the best campus dining facilities in the nation and a premier storyteller through the food that we're serving. Next slide. And just a little bit more about our dining operation. We are a self-operated dining program. We have 4 residential dining commons, 2 food trucks and concession stands, 1 fine dining restaurant, and as well as over 30 retail cafes across the campus. And then diving into some of the figures around our dining program, we've been able to maintain a high level of customer satisfaction. We're currently sitting at an 8.5 out of 10. We procure over $5 million worth of products from New England annually, with roughly $2.5 million of that coming from Massachusetts. And we also serve about 8 million meals a year, and that boils down to about 50,000 meals a day during the semester. So, taking into account the number of meals we're serving annually, we look at the impact our dining program has on our students. Almost 90% have stated that UMass Dining contributes positively to their overall well-being. Over 80% have said that it positively impacts their sense of belonging on campus. And right at 80% of students have shared that their experience at UMass Dining will influence their food purchasing decisions in the future. And gathering this specific data is something the dining program collects every year. And the surveys we conduct and the surveys we get, the data we gather from those surveys are a really instrumental piece to our engagement strategy. And for our sustainability department, we conduct a variety of surveys, which we'll cover a little bit throughout this presentation. But this form of data collection is really another way that we're engaging with students, on a variety of topics, not only around satisfaction and impact, but also on topics of sustainability. Kathy, I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, and just I jumped ahead a little too quickly past the data, but one of the things that that allows us to support and track our initiatives is even getting a sense of, are students ready for it? with surveying them ahead of time. And we'll talk a little bit about that as it relates to the Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign. But it is a way that we can touch base with them. And we have, we can get through both email messaging, social media, and tabling, along with a small incentive. We typically get close to 2,000, sometimes close to 3,000 responses from our folks that are on our meal plan. So I'm showing here our areas of focus for the sustainability team of UMass Dining. And we try and integrate these areas of focus into our communications, into how we think about initiative development, how we engage with students around our local sustainable and diverse procurement, our Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign, our waste reduction practices and education, our permaculture initiative, and our climate literacy and human and planetary health focus. So we're referring back to these areas of focus, and they inform our initiatives and our communications around the initiatives. So you can see permaculture, minimizing food waste, reducing our carbon footprint, pursuing social equity, promoting local and seasonal menus and purchasing, prioritizing waste reduction, improving animal welfare, supporting biodiversity and habitat protection, sustainable seafood, committing to ingredient transparency, promoting collaboration, and addressing food security. It also allows us to fold up into other campus-wide initiatives, like currently the UMass campus has signed on to the Okanagan Charter. That's an international commitment to become a health promoting campus. We have our Carbon Zero initiative to be carbon neutral by 2032. We have a new chancellor that we can then use these areas of focus to support and talk about some of the initiatives that he's beginning to demonstrate that are high priority, like addressing food security. So working both within our dining program, but as part of our larger system. So the Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign was conceived in collaboration with students, faculty, staff, and community who shared in a discussion about how to frame and introduce the campaign. So this started in 2018. I had just come on to the sustainability team, as typically happens, I got to talk with a lot of people, both about how things worked, but what they were interested in. I got to speak with former staff like Britt, who's now with Vine, and really try and get a sense of where things were, where things had a lot of room to grow, and where there was excitement and momentum. And the Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign was something that we jumped right into and got excited about from the beginning. I started in August. We had our first programming in the fall of 2018. And so the first thing that we wanted to do was really ground it in a framework. And through discussions with those collaborators, we agreed to use Project Drawdown as our backbone framework for the campaign, and look at what climate solutions that related to food we could immediately start applying and growing. We also agreed that we needed to have consistent messaging, educational and interactive strategies, and that it should be folded into existing programming. And at that time, the most promising opportunity was through our special events. So we had our inaugural Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign event in the fall of 2018. And for that, we really wanted to showcase the framework. So it was set up much like a art exhibit, and all of our special events typically have a special menu that go along with them. So not only did we kind of work with our culinary team to identify menu items that fit in with all of our framework, we also showcased exactly how it fit, each dish fit into the framework. And we had a sign for our framework. We had a sign for the menu as it related to the framework. And then we also had a big poster, like you see in the pictures, for each component of the framework that gave a bigger explanation of what it was. We collaborated with a number of students to act as ambassadors, and these came from our permaculture interns. It came from a class that was out of the Stockbridge School of Agriculture around sustainable agriculture. And then we also had some volunteers from a variety of different groups. And so we did a deep brief with the students who would act as ambassadors. We did a brief with the culinary team, and then we also we had opportunity for the students to be walking around, not only offering samples to their peers, but also talking about coming in to view the kind of exhibit. We had the video Inhabit running on a loop. So if people wanted to come in, sit down for a while after they had viewed kind of the exhibit, they could watch some of or all of the movie Inhabit. And then we also had tabletop messaging on all of the tables in the dining commons that had a QR code, and we used a QR code before they became popular with the pandemic. So we like to think that we were ahead of the times with that. But then we had this QR code to this video that I just want to share with you.
Food, I'm a total sucker. Whether it's sugar or grease or carbs, pretty much bring it on. And I spend a lot of time in Montana. So for me, that medium rare grass-fed ribeye steak, pretty much as good as it gets. I know, I don't do it often. And when I do, I gotta admit, I feel a little conflicted. And that's for a lot of reasons, including the planet. But how big of a problem is what I eat? I mean, does it really make much of a dent in something as huge as global warming? It turns out what we put on our plates matters a lot.
About 25% of all the global climate change problems we're seeing can be attributed back to the food and the choices that we're actually making about what we eat on a daily basis. This is greater than all the cars on the planet. In fact, it's about twice as much global warming pollution as the cars.
Ben Holton and Maya Almaraz study the connection between climate and diet at the University of California, Davis. They track how the way we produce food creates greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. With that data, the team has crunched the numbers to figure out how much carbon pollution is produced by different foods and different diets.
A lot of people feel really helpless when it comes to climate change, like they can't make a difference. And what our research is showing is that your personal decisions really can have a big impact.
So take that grass-fed ribeye steak I love. If you really look at everything that went into making a single serving of beef, you end up emitting around 330 grams of carbon. That's like driving a car for 3 miles. Now, if I choose to have chicken instead, there's more than a 5-fold drop in emissions. Switch to fish, and you see the number go down even more. Now, look at veggies. If I swapped beef out entirely for lentils, well, I'm down to practically nothing. So why does beef and lamb too, for that matter, pack such a powerful punch to the planet? Livestock accounts for a little over 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions. If that sort of seems low to you, consider it's about equal to transportation. We're talking all the cars, trucks, planes, trains, and ships on the planet combined. This is partly because ruminant animals like cows and sheep, they're just gassy. And the methane they produce is at least 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Plus, it takes a lot of land, fertilizer, and about 1 billion tons of grain to feed all that livestock.
You could feed 3.5 billion people with that grain. If we were just directly eating these grains ourselves, it would eliminate a lot of the CO2 that's emitted from cattle production.
So it's clear that meat has a pretty big carbon load, but it's also worth remembering that not all livestock is raised equally. In parts of the American West, for instance, ranchers are working to raise livestock in ways that actually help restore the land. And they're experimenting with ways that soil and grasslands can be used to keep carbon pollution out of the air. But even these sustainable ranchers will really tell you we're probably eating too much meat.
I know a lot of people who, if you don't serve them meat for lunch or dinner, they're kind of like, well, when is the meat coming out?
It's to the point now where the US actually has one of the highest meat footprints per capita. So what about not eating meat at all? Vegan is the way to go for the least impact on the planet, but it's not that much different in terms of emissions than, say, a vegetarian diet. And the team found that the environmental impact of the Mediterranean diet is pretty similar to vegan and vegetarian diets. It's a lot less meat heavy than what Americans are used to. So fish and poultry a few times a week, beef maybe once a month, plenty of plant-based foods, and of course, loads of olive oil.
Eliminating like 90% of your meat intake is more important than eliminating all of it. We don't all have to be vegan. We don't all even have to be vegetarian. If we can just reduce our meat intake, every little bit helps. If you can bring it down a lot, you can help the climate a lot.
If we all just switched to a Mediterranean diet, it could actually solve 15% of global warming pollution by 2050.
If everyone were to move toward it, that is equivalent to taking somewhere around 1 billion cars off of the streets in terms of vehicle emissions each year. So that kind of a footprint is big time.
But say you still want more meat than the Mediterranean diet recommends. Just cutting down your portion size to the doctor recommended 4 ounces can reduce your emissions by half. That's huge.
In fact, the doctors are telling us we're eating about twice as much meat as we really need for a healthy diet.
The good news is we are listening to our doctors. In the last decade, there's been a 19% drop in the amount of beef we eat.
All these things that you're already being told are good for you also happen to be good for the planet.
So what we eat really is a big part of the climate puzzle. I mean, we may not all be able to afford an electric car or putting solar panels on our house, but we all have to eat every day. And these choices we make can add up to really big numbers. And since meat has a pretty big carbon load, we need to be thoughtful about how much we eat. As for that ribeye steak that I really love, I am honestly trying to cut back. Maybe it's just a smaller piece of steak, or simply swapping out a meat dish for a veggie burger. It may seem like a small thing, but it really does add up to big impacts. Hey, so what did you have for dinner last night? Find out how your choices are affecting global warming by taking a quiz at climate.universityofcalifornia.edu, or watch one of our other episodes to discover what happened when I brought a box of donuts to MIT.
So we wanted to show that clip to you because it was a little radical at the time for us to be showing that video and giving everybody access to it by using a QR code. And it really helped frame what we were trying to get at. Big messages. We weren't trying to advocate for a vegan diet. We weren't thinking about moving the dining program towards a vegan only menu. We were talking about everyday climate action and real simple things that that students could do to participate in that, raising awareness, building education, and and so we started with the exhibit. We had a lot of messaging, tried out some things, and then we regrouped, did a debrief with our collaborators, and started planning for the next year. And so in 2019, we had our second event, and for that, we had an interactive panel on agroforestry. We again had a special menu. We did an even more intentional and intensive menu briefing with the culinary team, so that we let them know that we also wanted them to be communicating about the dishes that they were going to be serving, which is something that they hadn't previously been asked to do very much at special events, that their role was pretty much to serve the food and to keep the lines moving. But they were ready and able to answer any questions that folks had about the menu and the framework that it was attached to. Again, each dish had some attachment to the framework that was laid out through signage, communications, and posters. We did, because we had a great panel that included both regional as well as local as well as regional panelists, that we did reach out to a broader network to invite them as well to the event. And our engagement strategies this year included more social media, more digital assets around campus, more print notifications, and then the student ambassadors had specific talking points as they went around to serve the to offer samples of the menu, so that any given dish, they had very specific talking points around the framework associated with that dish. And then we also had a big table for trivia. And everybody loves this wheel. And so we got a lot more attention around very kind of one-on-one interaction with questions around food and its carbon impact. And then 2020 came, and we, like everybody else, had to do the pandemic pivot. And so the first thing that we started with that spring of 2020, when everything was literally shut down, was we all took a crash course in Zoom. I think that I had used Zoom 3 times before this, before things shut down. And we ended up starting a series of sustainability and resilience workshops that were all virtual. They were live from the garden and live from the kitchen. They all focused on growing and cooking with the seasons. So we ended up having 18 virtual gatherings total. We even had one that was about it was like at on a trail, kind of what you can notice when you're walking on a trail around the trees that are around you, and so we tried a little bit of everything. We had one of the chefs do one of the cooking demonstrations from her sister's house in North Carolina, and we made recordings, and we also offered resources after each of the events, whether it was about starting your own chicken program at your house, or whether it was for growing a medicinal first aid garden. We had resources available afterwards. We had faculty, staff, other community members, all participating in this virtual gathering, and it brought opportunity both to be doing something practical where you were around resilience and sustainability, but it also built community and connection in a time when we were all so desperate for it. We even had one group on campus that asked their supervisor to be able to switch their team meetings so that they could make these gatherings. So we were really excited to be able to offer something that nobody else in the auxiliary enterprises were offering to everybody that was impacted by the shutdown. Then in the fall, we had 2 virtual panel discussions. And the first one was our first, see, I'm just checking to see. No, I guess that the first one was actually our local seafood dinner. I had to check the dates, which was a collaboration with Our Wicked Fish, who was in the middle of doing a Massachusetts seafood contest that cook-off. I think that it was called the Massachusetts Seafood Cook-Off that included social media, it included contests, and it also included cooking demonstrations that our chefs on campus were developing and creating for them, that we were also showing among our audience, so that students, faculty, staff all were encouraged to participate. And then we had this virtual panel discussion. And again, we were learning about opportunities around these virtual, with the virtual format. But what we wanted to make sure was that we were having consistent and opportunities despite the different format, and that we were continuing to focus on that framework that we had introduced in 2018. The second one that we had was our first in a series of What Indigenous Foodways Can Teach Us About Climate Action. This was our first collaboration with the I Collective, an Indigenous collective that is comprised of chefs and artists and activists and knowledge keepers that some of which are local, but they also had a pop-up happening in Northampton, and I'm friends with one of the co-founders, and the idea of collaboration was exciting for us all, and the virtual format allowed us to engage with more of their members from across the country. And so, because there were some folks that were still on campus or that had come back to campus at that time, we were able to include a special menu for both of these events, although not as many people were able to enjoy it. We did have a special menu. We had a lot of communication about it for both of the events, and we had a great turnout that was broad, not just our campus community, but with the I Collective reach, we also had people from across the country. So that the engagement was different, but we kept it going in the way that we could. And that first virtual panel discussion with the I Collective was supported by some grant funds from the UMass Libraries and the Community Foundation in Vermont. we then went on to continue to collaborate using, after applying for a grant on campus for community engagement and service learning. And that provided us some more funding to support another 2 years of collaboration with the iCollective that includes a digital cookbook that we are still finalizing. And so that again was another virtual presentation that was a panel discussion. And then we also had a food waste reduction event that was our first back really on campus in the dining commons, engaging with students in ways that was face-to-face. And that included a few different things. Again, our menu, we had another special menu that featured a lot of local ingredients, and then also focused on our framework. We kept continuing to come back to the framework. We developed more materials. We got that wheel out again, did some trivia, had some more informational material to hand out. But then we also did, where we had come up with a way to weigh the food that was going to, that was post-consumer food waste. And we had a rubric that if it weighed so much that, you know, depending on the weight, either they were climate heroes or we sent them back out to try and do better the next time. And then had an opportunity to talk one-on-one with that, about what that meant and how they could think about food choices the next time, which isn't an easy thing on an all-you-care-to-eat dining facility, but we've got a lot of strategies that we were able to one-on-one inform them about. And again, these meals are serving 1,000, 2,000 people while just in the few hours that we're there. We also, let me just go back. We also did a survey in collaboration with 2 graduate students. Another part of our engagement strategy includes taking advantage of undergraduates and graduate students that are interested in a topic, and working with them to figure out where we can meet both their needs, but also advance some of the things that we are interested in. And so we did a survey that reached close to 2,000 people, 2,000 students on campus, asking them about their relationship with food choices, their perceptions and concern about the climate crisis. And what we found was that it was on the majority of our students' mind that they wanted to reduce their own carbon impact. They either wanted to know how they could do more to do that, or just a way to start. And so we started doing more research around how we could make this our menus and our framework be an opportunity for everyday climate action. And so then we started collaborating with a third-party organization called My Emissions to see what the possibilities were for us to actually have our recipes analyzed at the ingredient level by amount in each ingredient to be able to rate it on an A through E rating. There are some other campuses that are using a rating system, but we were the first to use an A through E rating system that has an outside party doing the analysis. And we piloted that on a small scale in Hampshire Dining Commons the last 2 months of the spring semester in 2020. We also at that time expanded our partnerships to include working on a 2-year project with Atlantic Sea Farms, which is a kelp company out of with off-season lobster fishermen and women to grow line-grown kelp that is both a superfood for the planet, but also superfood for people. And so we began doing communications, engagement, and special events around bringing kelp onto the college menu and engaging more students about it. And then as part of that project, we're developing a handbook for other college and universities. And this is a project supported by Kendall Foundation funding. I'm going to move through some of these more quickly. We continued our collaboration with the I Collective with 2 in-person events, one of it which was in the garden. So we were really able to use that space as a community engagement strategy that included walking and talking and looking and smelling and then tasting. And then we also had another member of the I Collective come from New Mexico to talk about his work, both presently, but also previously as the head chef at the restaurant at the Smithsonian Museum for Native American that he was at until it closed down with the pandemic. We again have built in continuous engagement with our local partners as part of the Dining for a Cooler Planet event. So continuing to engage students and engage our local partners, and using the staff and our managers who have received continuous education in relationship to the Dining for a Cooler Planet campaign, so that they too can communicate it to our customers.
Great. So last semester, the spring of 2023, we hosted 2 Dining for a Cooler Planet events, both of which revolved around framework solution number 8, which focuses on sustainable and regenerative seafoods. So we kicked it off with a Kelp the World event, which was done in partnership with Atlantic Sea Farms. And the second event was a no fish dinner, which we did in collaboration with the One Fish Foundation, Slow Food, and Slow Fish USA, as well as Red's Best. So both of these events, again, featured a special dinner menu all evening at the Dining Common where the event was held. We provided visual representation of our Dining for a Cooler Planet framework, event signage and promotion and coverage through social media. We had our student interns and student ambassadors involved in these events. And of course, our collaborative partners across UMass Auxiliary and the other community organizations and businesses that were involved. But so our first event was the Kelp the World event, and we are at the tail end of that 2-year partnership with them. But the length of this partnership that we've had has really allowed us the time to grow and dive deeper and just bring more breadth into our student engagement strategies around kelp as a sustainable superfood for both people and the planet. And for this specific event, we actually incorporated a student focus group where the students were able to taste test 5 different kelp dishes. So we had the executive chef of residential dining come and present each dish one at a time to the group of students. And then the students had the opportunity to discuss their feedback with the group, and they were also given a form to anonymously submit their feedback for us. And we really just wanted to provide the space where the students felt comfortable giving honest feedback, and really just let them know that their opinions are valued and they really do help inform what we do. Also for this event, we featured a kelp burger photo booth, which you can see on the slide. And this was a new interactive piece, which we've never used for an event before. And this idea was actually replicated from a social media post that Atlantic Sea Farms did with their customers. And it just turned out to be a really great way to interact with the students and get them excited about kelp on campus. And just one last thing I'll say about that event is, again, you know, this 2-year grant funded partnership we've had has really just allowed us to explore new and creative ways around student engagement, especially when it came to introducing a more novel ingredient like kelp into the campus menu. So the next event we had last semester was our No Fish Dinner.
Oh.
And sorry if you could just, yes, thank you, Kathy. And this event featured, it was done in collaboration, like I said, with the One Fish Foundation. And we also had guests from Slow Fish and Slow Food USA, as well as Red's Best, who is our local seafood supplier for campus. So this event, we featured a panel discussion with them, and it was really designed to be an informative and interactive dining experience. So the panelists discussed everything from food waste and lack of transparency in the industrial seafood industry to utilizing underused species and community building around shared values, and also just the importance of preserving independent fishing families in the industry. So after the discussion, we had the panelists join the tables of students. Together, they enjoyed a sampling from the special menu, and they also had conversation prompts to kind of explore what sustainable seafood means to them. And having that aspect of the panelists joining the tables of students for a more intimate conversation was a new feature to a panel discussion that we incorporated for the first time. And we really thought it made for a space for robust and meaningful conversations to take place. And one last thing I'll say on this event is I just want to highlight the signage that was provided by Red's Best. So each dinner station, which was serving Red's Best fish, was also accompanied by a sign that included, you know, the name of the fisherman or woman, the name of the boat, and the harvesting method, and also the port the boat landed in. So we really thought these signs helped elevate the students' ability to connect more so with what they were eating. And next slide. All right, so bringing us to present day. We've started off strong this semester with 2 events already in the books and a couple more on the calendar. But our first one celebrated our local partners with a harvest dinner. And the other event continued on with our Indigenous Foodways series. So some common engagement strategies we used for both of these events were, of course, a featured special dinner menu all evening, the visual representation of the framework, event signage and event promotion and coverage on social media, our student interns involved, and our collaborative partners with auxiliary and the other community organizations and businesses. So for the local harvest dinner, we had 8 of our local partners join us. And similar to past events, we had tables set up where the local partners could share information on their business and their role in the local food system. They were also able to share samples and just have that in-person engagement with students. And with that piece, we really just wanted to bring more attention and connection to, you know, the specific local ingredients that students see on their everyday menu options, and just create that real world association between producer and consumer. For the harvest dinner celebration, we also had student interns who were engaging with our local partners, staff and students, and the interns posed the question on why do you think it's important to eat and support local? So they captured that content, and it's actually something we'll be featuring on social media later this week. But our interns, they are a really pivotal piece in supporting and really helping execute some of our engagement strategies, especially when it comes to social media. And the other event that we've had so far this semester continued on, like I said, with our Indigenous Foodways series. And this series and this theme has really been a great topic to have under our Dining for a Cooler Planet umbrella. It's really allowed us to explore new perspectives under a common theme of how Indigenous foodways are resilient and how they connect people to place and community. And they've also opened up the space for broader connections to other networks that are working on Indigenous studies. But for this event, Kathy, I think if we counted right, it's the 5th or 6th event we've held in this series. And we featured guest chef Julie Vanderhoof, who's a Wampanoag tribal elder, Martha's Vineyard community leader, and the owner of Orange Peel Bakery in Aquinnah, Massachusetts. So Julie gave a cooking demonstration of her family's clam fritters recipe and shared her philosophy on the connection between people, places, and food. And this demo presentation approach that we've used for several of these events in the past really allows, we think, for an immersive experience for the audience. You know, they get to hear the origin story of the dish, they get to smell it as it's being made, and then they get to taste the final product, and it kind of offers this full circle experience. So this particular engagement approach is definitely one I think we'll continue to utilize in the future and also build upon. All right, next. Thank you. All right, so we've shared a lot of information so far on our engagement strategies and how they've evolved over the years. So just to kind of give a quick recap of this, we divided it up into 3 topic buckets of collaborations, communications, and events. So for collaborations, we're really centered around our students, faculty, staff, and community organizations. And for our students, you know, we have our paid student interns. We sometimes get the help of marketing interns. And then we also have a group of student dining ambassadors that we're able to collaborate with. Additionally, we're always trying to take opportunities to present to classes and student organizations on campus around topics of sustainability, and also make sure we're making those broader connections to community goals and also campus-wide initiatives like the UMass Carbon Zero and the Okanagan Charter. And for communication, we definitely think it's important to have a lot of tools in the toolbox and to be utilizing a variety of strategies. So we mentioned surveys as an important piece of our engagement strategy. And, you know, the data we collect from those are a really pivotal piece in informing and shaping how we approach those strategies. We're integrating sustainability messaging into dining information. And recently, we've really been trying to increase our sustainability presence on UMass Dining social media accounts. And in that, we're really harnessing the knowledge of our student interns when it comes to creating content. And that just helps keep our messaging more fresh and relevant. Additionally, we're always utilizing print materials, especially for events. Sometimes we like to have info cards and stickers to hand out for things like our carbon rating on the menu. And for the events themselves, we're always featuring that special dinner menu. We're integrating activities that are interactive, like the cooking demos, panel discussions, taste testings, focus groups, and now even photo booths. And we always, again, have the support and presence of our interns who just help us with that content for socials and interacting with people at the event. Kathy, do you have anything that you want to add for engagement strategies?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, we are looking for opportunities that not only kind of include outward facing activities, but also internally facing. So even with the carbon rating on the menu, we're working with My Emissions to be able to analyze the recipes for ways that we can reduce those individual recipes' carbon impact. So by ingredients, doing an analysis, and then being able to communicate and track over time. That is really something that, working both inside and outside, front facing and internally, is really important. We do try and make sure that it's fun and factual. We know that students want the information that they're getting based in some facts that are credible, and that we want to have our stake planted in the ground around facts. We also don't mind getting provocative, which is new territory for some of the areas that I think that the sustainability team for UMass Dining that existed well before I came along was always a more provocative arm of the program. But we have both opportunity and a commitment to push the edges. And I think that students appreciate that. They appreciate honesty, they appreciate context, and they appreciate when we are operating on the edges and not being static and learning from the times. So I would say that those are the other things. We certainly have had successes and challenges, for sure. Our successes really include things like brand recognition. Now that we have had kind of the consistent, the consistent messaging, we do keep referring back to the framework. We keep creating new partnerships. We keep partnering on communications with other parts of the campus and tying our work into bigger regional food justice, food security, resilience, health promoting for both people and the planet. So connecting to those bigger frameworks is important to us. So the partnering with a variety of groups has been really a part of our success. Maximizing what the dining program already does really well, like the events. Collecting data, we have access to and good response when it comes to surveys. And then we partner with students for new ideas. We can't always implement, but we're always bringing that excitement and passion and ideas into the mix of things and advancing them as quickly or as slowly as we can. Some of the challenge.
I'm so sorry, but we are at the end of our hour already. It is like, this is such a big topic, just both in terms of like really tackling these deep issues of climate change and how we can make a difference, as well as all of the student engagement opportunities. So I want to make sure that I give you time for any last sort of messages before people will have to leave. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And also, if this has raised any questions or ideas, we really want to hear from you. We would love to continue the conversation. So please make sure to just drop any questions you may have in the chat or in the Q&A, because Monica and Kathy are happy to follow up, as is fine. And we'd love to hear about some of the things that you're doing so we can understand more about how this is all playing out across New England. With that, I'm going to hand things back over to Kathy for one moment, just to wrap us up and just say thank you to both of you for sharing the amazing work that you've been doing and seeding a lot of ideas for us all.
Great. I'm sorry we ran out of time, and we did want to pose these questions for people to start engaging in. You probably have them in some way, shape, or form on an ongoing basis, but this is about engagement. So continuing to engage with each other and collaborate is something that we highly promote and are happy to participate in. And as Tanya said, please feel free to reach out with any questions or any ideas or any opportunities to collaborate. We are excited and open to all of that. And thank you again to Fine for inviting us to present to all of you, and I thank you all for joining us for this hour. And I'll just have Monica add any final message.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today as we explored different avenues for student engagement and kind of engagement in general. And we really hope some of what we were able to share today resonated with you and will help you with your engagement strategies moving forward.
And if anybody is burning to know the challenges that we didn't quite get to, we're happy to share those too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.